What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Sports Card Madness. I'm here as always, but I've got a cool guest today for this episode. His name's Colby Vining. And what happened here was, I get 5 or 6 requests every week where somebody runs into this huge collection or they inherit stuff from their parents and they literally have no idea what to do. They don't even know what PSA is or what grading is, or even if they should grade cards. So I ran into to Colby through a mutual friend, and he's got a ton of cool stuff and some stories behind it. And I thought I would literally take this live, and he could just ask me what to do here. And then when everybody reaches out to me, I can selfishly share this episode. So I think this will be helpful for all of you. I'll give some tips on it, and I think there's some cool stories. So welcome to the pod, Kobe.
Hey, thanks for having me, Nick.
Yeah, you got it. So, all right, man. What do you have in your collection? What's top of mind to you?
So, the collection, I think like the crown jewel for me, and it's not because of what it is, or I think it's because of how I got it, and the whole story behind it. I'm a hockey fan, but I think like my favorite piece, most nostalgic, probably is a '66 Mantle, and that's when I reached out to you about that. As a kid, I got Beckett. I probably have every magazine for 10 years. I keep everything. I'm a organized hoarder, as I like to say. So I followed all that stuff as a kid because I was a big hockey fan. My dad played hockey in Canada, semi-pro. I played hockey, through high school. But baseball was really not my thing. Obviously, growing up in Boston, you're supposed to hate the Yankees. And for years, I kind of had that, like, oh, I hate the Yankees, but I had this mantle. And I love Yogi Berra. And recently watched a Netflix show on him again and kind of sparked like my love and interest. And I'm like, yeah, I really can't hate the Yankees, even though everybody in Boston hates the Yankees. I was like, I have this emotional attachment to this mantle, which is like the craziest story in the world. And fortunate for me, my grandfather on my mom's side was the like Northeast distributor for TV Guide. He was a magazine distributor out of Braintree, Massachusetts, and he had all kinds of great connections to to Boston, to sports teams, to the Patriots, to the Bruins, and I was fortunate to go to with him to so many different games. So when I was a kid, I got into sports card collecting, and not so much baseball cards, but hockey cards. I love childhood idols like Wayne Gretzky, Ray Bork, those guys. I was able to attend some really cool events. I was at the first Tampa Bay Lightning game. I still have the stub that's they presented to everybody. It's like this really cool, basically you open it, it's got a giant ticket stub and then your original stub. So I was supposed to go to the All-Star game, and I'm going off of memory. I'm 40 now, so I'm going back 30 years on some of this. So forgive me if I have some of the dates wrong, but I believe the All-Star game in '95 was supposed to be in San Jose, and we were supposed to go to it. I got the puck, and I think the lockout happened, and then subsequently the next year it happened in Boston, so I was able to attend that. There's some really cool things that my grandfather, opened the door for me. And as a kid, you don't realize that, but he took me to all these sports card shows around Boston, and we met a ton of people. I've got a great Blaine Locker story, and we just got a ton of autographs, meeting Ray Bork and Johnny Busick and guys like that. And I had a sports card shop in the town I live in, grew up in Marshfield, and I used to ride my bike there and just kind of like, I had a paper route, spend my allowance, and my, anytime I could get into that place, I was there. But to give you some context on the mantle, and I guess my grandfather probably tells the story better, but I think I was between the age of like 7 and 10 years old. We had went to a sports card show, and just kind of hunting down things and just walking around. And I don't know if you remember, but a lot of guys had these like board games there, and you could win different cards. And they would like, it was like almost going to like the fair. You go to the fair and you got to shoot the basketball in the hoop that it doesn't fit into. It's like impossible. So the story of the mantle is, and I think it was like $20, and you bought in and you had to roll dice, and there was like 4 or 5 tiers of cards that if like you rolled a certain, basically, I think it was double sixes is what you had to roll to go to the next round. And rolled double sixes 3 times in a row, and the guy behind the counter was sweating it out. And it was like, I guess the odds in Vegas are probably 1 in a million that you're going to roll that two dice, six, six, six. And like I said, my grandfather tells a story and people don't even believe it. And basically, that was like after I had done it the first time, you could see the guy was like, oh, okay, the kick. Then I did it the second time and he's kind of sweating it out. Then I did it the third time and he didn't really want to, I don't think anybody have ever done that. He didn't want to give me the pick. So he tried to kind of bamboozle me into picking a different card. And I saw the mantle and I was like, no, I want that. And he didn't want to like fulfill it because he was like, I think it was up there, mantle was up there to kind of reel people in like, hey, spend $20, play the game. You're never going to win, the top shelf. And I did, and I picked the mantle, and the guy didn't want to give me the card, and my grandfather was sitting there arguing with him, and we got the
Wow.
card. And it was just like a crazy story that like it's almost like I wish I had it on like a YouTube video because it probably had 1 million views, these young kids rolling the dice and hits. So that's how I ended up with the mantle. Probably 34 or 5 years ago.
So
Maybe
that's the 1966 mantle, right?
yeah,
66 tops.
66 mantle, yep, tops mantle and
So
like
what kind of condition is it in?
So and you'll probably be pissed. It's been in this slab like that it came in for 30 something years. I've never taken it out. I've never touched it. I don't even think it's seen the light of day. It's just was sitting in a box in my dad's house for years and years and years. And when I built the house, we took all my stuff out of my dad's. Your parents kind of shove your stuff out, like, hey, now that you have your own house and it's big enough, take your stuff, please. I'm gonna turn your room into something else. So I I kind of what sparked my interest is I was on Facebook and I kept seeing like different things pop up, like different people, like cards and your card things kept popping up. Started listening to your podcast, a couple others, and I'm like, I gotta dig this thing out, man. Like I'm like sweating it out. I'm like, I hope the mantle's still there. It's like my prized possession. And I dug it out. I guess like it seems to be in pretty good shape, but it's never been out of that block. It's like one of those, if you can picture it, the huge thick blocks the cards come in.
Is it
So
in a screw down? Are there screws?
yes, yeah.
Okay. So here's my first piece of advice before we get this thing graded. Take it out of the screw down box and let it breathe for like 3 months. Because what happens, that screw down over 30 years smushes the card. And so if that thing, let's say it's a PSA 8, right? It's like looking beautiful. You'll send it to PSA. They'd be like, sorry, doesn't measure the depth of the card, doesn't measure under our specs. So we're going to call it authentic, which, will ding the value like 10%. But the way around that is just in a normal household humidity. Don't go to the desert or anything. You take that out of the screw down, let it breathe in just a normal case, like a one touch or something like that for a few months. That should fix the problem. So the other thing you want to do, with a card like this, if you're going to sell it, then that's one thing. And if you're not, that's another. If you're going to sell it, really the highest resale value is PSA. That's like, numero uno. And the easiest thing to do is just go on eBay and type in like, Mickey Mantle, 1966 tops, PSA 6, PSA 8, PSA 4. All right. And then you look at those and you say, okay, which one does mine look like? Which one is like the condition that's closest to what I'm doing? And then once you've got that, then just hit the sold tab. Just see what it's sold for. So I know this one in decent condition is, multiple thousands of dollars. Like PSA 8s look like they're a couple grand. I mean, if you had a 10, who knows? That could be like crazy. It's probably hard to get. So take a look at it, get out of the case and let it breathe. And then, maybe offline I'll take a look at it for you and let you know what I think. But that's what I would do with that. Are you going to sell it or are you going to keep it?
So I don't think I could ever sell it. Like, fortunately, I'm not like I think I would like be buried with that thing. It was just like, and like I said, I don't tell the story as good as my grandfather, but it's just such a core childhood memory, and it was just like a crazy battle, and like it's like I said, if I was in Vegas, probably hit the jackpot, and it was cool. So I don't think I'd sell it. I do have cards that like I do want to sell, and like I'm very interested in the PSA process,
Okay.
and like I fell out of the hobby for so long, got involved in other things and, careers. And I really, once I turned 16, I got really involved in cars and like almost forgot about sports. It was like
Sure.
maybe 18. I really got, heavily into that and, kind of just shelf that stuff because I was like, some of it, like I said, so much sentimental value, so many different memories of going to different events and autographs and things like that. I definitely like to sell some of it because I feel like I'm just like want to pass it on some of it, pass it on to the next person and let them
All right.
enjoy it. Like not just hoard it forever and be like, oh, it's in the dungeon of my basement and like no one's, I think that like I'm just like the caretaker of some of it, and I feel like a
Got it.
lot of it needs to get passed on to the next person.
All right. So in that case, it doesn't matter so much, but I would definitely attempt to get it in a slab for protection purposes. And you also lock in the grade. So like if you want to display this thing on a desk and it's in the sun for hours all the time, gets faded over time, the grade will go down, right? But if you get it slabbed, the original grade is what matters, right? So and then if you're going to hand it down, who knows what they're going to do with it, right? You want it safe and protected. So I would submit it. I guess the resale value doesn't matter as much, doesn't have to be PSA, but I would just do PSA for this card.
Yeah,
Process is super easy. We did an entire podcast on this, but you just go to PSA, you sign up, you pick you know, you're going to grade a card and then you enter the card. It shows you a picture of the card. It's like dummy proof now. And it tells you the price. It's really based on the value of the card and the speed you want it. There's no rush here. So I can't imagine, it depends on the value. If it's a PSA 8 worth a few grand, it might cost you $150 to grade. But if this is like a really beat up card and it's just a few $100, then it only costs you like 25, $35 to grade and get in a slab. And the turnaround time's like for the one at the few $1,000 one, that's like I don't know, 15 days. The one that's $35, it might take a couple months. But I'd recommend doing that. So that's the mantle. Now you said there's some other stuff that you wanted to potentially
yeah.
sell. What else do you have?
So I had two questions really quick because I listened to the podcast, and I think this might help some of the other listeners. I listened to the podcast like 12 times because I was like, you guys you and Larry talked about shipping, and you guys talked about this. So navigating the waters, I had a couple questions, and I think you
Sure.
answered right then and there. So I went on first question in regards to value. I went on eBay and I saw such a wide range. Like you see a 66 mantle for like almost like you're like $100, and I'm like, wow. And then you see someone thousands of dollars. And I know you guys touched on this, and I know like with the PSA grading that it's based upon value. And I think Larry also said like sometimes they'll ding you back with an email, hey, good try, but this thing's not, things worth
Yeah.
4 grand, not 400.
Yep.
So that was interesting. I guess like with the mantle, I saw such a wide range because I did my due diligence. I popped on eBay, and I just saw like almost stuff that was not believable. You see stuff on there for 100,000, and then you see the same card for $100, and I'm like, all right, well, this is like this is so confusing.
Right. What's the deal? Yeah. So
Yeah, like, is this real or is this fake? Are people just like putting it out there to show you they have it? Is it like a car? Like, with the car, you put it out there. Hey, I just found this barn find $2 million, but we all know it's not worth that. Are we just show and tell on eBay, or
yeah, I
what's
mean, you work in the car industry. There's a reason the valets put the Lambo out front of the restaurant, right? So
exactly?
eBay's got the traffic and they've got the users, and it's a huge platform, right? So people will go on there and just brag and be like, here's something I have. This is my Instagram handle, and they'll put it up there for like $1 million. I see this
Yeah,
all the time with signed Michael Jordan cards and stuff. That's all crap, right? That's all just like fun and games and
PR
everything.
mark.
If you are legit looking for the value of something, the best and only way to do that is to go to eBay and then hit the sold tab on the left side, sold and completed. Even that can be funny a little bit because you'll have people like bidding on their own stuff and things.
Yeah, shill
But
betting and stuff. Yeah,
exactly. But for the most part, it's pretty accurate within, whatever, 10%. So again, you got to figure out the grade of your card. That's like the most important first step. So if your card's like a 1 or a 2, then yeah, it's like a couple $100. But I'm
yeah,
looking on here, if it's a PSA 8, really centered, corners look sharp, color's not faded, that's a few grand. So it's it's different. So look for the value. So hit sold right away. Just type in Mickey Mantle 1966 tops sold. Boom. Hit that right away. Hit completed and sold. Now you've got your list, right? Go in that list and find the one closest to you, whether it's like a PSA 6 or something like that. That's your value. There is one other website you can go to, 130point.com, and they yank eBay and they yank all the auction sites as well, like Golden and Heritage and others. So some of these cards might have been auctioned off over there, and that's a valid comp, right? Outside of eBay. That's not perfect, but that should get you your answer on like a mainstream card like that. That's what I would do. But you're going to see all kinds of crazy stuff. Like they're going to list it for whatever, just bananas prices, weird buy it now prices. There's going to be
Yeah,
reprints. They'll have reprints of that card priced at the value of the 1966 actual card just to try to trick you. And then, oh, maybe this guy will buy it and keep it for, a few months and then we'll bail. We'll lose
yeah.
our account, but who cares? So there's a lot of like funny business going on, but the best way is to look at sold and then go on that other website.
That's great advice because I honestly would have never thought to look at the soul because I was like, I'm navigating this thing and I'm like, no way, this is like unbelievable. Like like I said, the difference between 100 and 100,000. I saw one on there. I'm like, yeah, okay, this is completely fake. So that's great. So the sold tab is kind of a good gauge. And
That's key.
thank you for that website link. I'll check those guys out. And I guess my other question, and you guys touched upon this, and I'm a little crazy, so forgive me on this. I know you guys said you can drop it off in person, and the only reason I considered this at
Hmm.
all, honestly, is because like this thing is like so sentimental to me. And I've dealt with the post office, FedEx, and I think you guys mentioned like New Jersey for PSA. Like it would not be beyond me to drive to New Jersey and drop this off. Like I'd be
Yeah.
all over. I mean, I do a lot of traveling for work. I go to New Jersey fairly often. I would drive the mantle there and drop it off. So like, how does that process look? Because
Sure.
I know you guys didn't really dive into that. Could you explain like dropping it off in person? I feel a
Yeah.
little safer, I guess, that way with something like this. The rest of the collection, I'm okay with mailing.
Yeah. So
This
there's a few options. Before I get into that, I'm a little crazier. I roll the dice. I shipped a very valuable Michael Jordan signed card with just overnight with 5 grand of insurance because I just can't deal with registered mail. It just takes like months sometimes. It made it. I would have been pissed if it didn't. But I shipped that for like $70. So yeah, I wouldn't do that. It's pretty sentimental to you. So here's how it works. So PSA, they have a couple offices. They got one in Cali, they got one in New Jersey, right? You can do walk-in service at either one. You just have to go on the website. Just go PSA walk-in schedule. Just Google that. You can schedule a time in a day, like an appointment. It's by appointment. You can't just like show up at the door, and be like, I got this, right? You schedule an appointment in New Jersey, certain day and time. Boom, show up, give them the card, and then drop it off. Pick your service level. They can ship it back to you, or you can keep it in their vault, or you can go pick it up. There are other options too. They for the bigger shows. The National is one that's a bit far from us. I know you're in Boston like me.
Yeah, I listened to the
Um,
podcast in the National. That was so cool, man. I really enjoyed listening to that one. That was a really good episode.
Thanks. So that's another option. PSA's at the National. They bring a house worth of equipment, and they do, and Beckett does too, and they do on-site grading. You'll have it back like by the end of the show. They do that at bigger shows. I think they do it at Dallas, maybe Philly, maybe Philly. Don't quote me on that, but there's like 3 or 4 shows that the Burbank show. I know they do it there. SGC will do it at some of these shows. So that's always an option too, but we're not far from New Jersey. I mean,
No, no,
close, but
no.
not far. So that's what I'd recommend. That's kind of how that works.
Yeah, I think I might for the mantle. I'm never rolling the dice again. No pun intended. But I'm like that thing is gonna be like I just can't picture nothing against the post office. I've been on as you know, I'm in the automotive industry, so I've been on the side of the highway with the postal truck rolled over and mail everywhere. So I can't
Uh,
picture doing that. And I've told those kind of things, and I'm like, hey, I think I'm gonna deliver the mantle in person and CPSA.
that's
But
cool.
yeah, so that's why that's great advice.
I've never done it myself, so let me
All
know
right,
how it goes. Good
I'm gonna
luck.
do it, man. I'm all in on that. Like, I just picture walking in this lobby and it's gonna be like so automated, but at least I did it,
Yeah, yeah.
But
I think that's great. Some of these guys that I run into, I have the whole 1986 Fleer set autographed.
Wow.
And there's someone else who does, and they're all raw, meaning they're not in a slab or anything like that. I mean, that's worth like a couple, 200-300 grand. He's not mailing that. You know what I mean? He's going to go to either the National or New Jersey or whatever, and he's going to submit those cards and get them taken care of. So yeah, when you're dealing at a certain value, then you want to do that. I will say this: if it's something you want to keep, fine, yeah, do that. If there's something you want to sell, a lot of these auction houses make house calls. So, they make commission just like everybody else in every other industry, right? So you call up, Jason at Heritage Auctions. You say, hey, dude, I got this like, $50,000 card. I'm not leaving my house. I'm kind of lazy. Okay, cool. He'll pay for the plane ticket. He'll come out and he'll assess that card, probably grade it for free for you, mark it all up, charge you obviously the normal fee that they charge, anywhere from 10 to 20%. And life is good. So they'll come to you in a lot of cases, but that's if you want to sell it. The mantle, obviously you're keeping, so that's not an
Yeah.
option.
Yeah, and there's some other ones. And like, I was really happy when I started listening to your podcast and you talked about like autograph cards. And then I've seen on your Instagram like you're like the hunter of autographs, which I think is like the coolest thing. Because as a kid, I always like, I'm a 7, 8 year old kid, and I got a great Blaine Locker story. Who like he fell off the face of the earth as a
All right, so
Bruins
who's
goal.
for the audience, who's Blaine Locker?
So Blaine Locker was a goalie for the Boston Bruins. So I believe when he was in college, he played. They won the championship. I forget who he played for in college, but like he fell off the face of the earth for years. But he played for the Bruins for like a season and a half, and he was like, you know, coming off like Andy Moogs and Reggie Lemons and people like that. Like I just like this guy showed up to the Bruins. And when I went to the Hockey Hall of Fame as a kid, they had an exhibit of like all the helmets of the goalies. They had Patrick Roy, Andy Moog. It was a really cool exhibit. I don't know if they still have it at the Hockey Hall of Fame, but Locker shows up to the Bruins in a white helmet. And like he was just kind of like this mysterious guy, right? Fresh off a national championship in college. And I'm not, forgive me on the statistics, but shows up, and I had a card, and it was like at the time a tough card to get because he was like an unknown guy. I don't think he was drafted. I could be wrong. And so, anyways, he shows up to a card show, and I was really young, and my grandfather again had brought me to the card show. He's carting me around everywhere, and Blaine Locker's there to sign autographs. And being a young kid, I guess I just walked right up to the table, cut the whole line, because I'm like, oh my god, it's Blaine Locker. And they were, kind enough to be like, oh, it's a young kid, like I'm going to sign. But I literally probably cut 40 people. And my grandfather pulls me aside. He was like, hey, you really should wait in line next time. And I'm like, what line? He's like, all these people are waiting for Blaine Locker. I'm like, oh, oops, sorry, So Blaine Locker signs the card and, fell off the face of the earth after that. But he was kind of like this goalie for the Bruins. And it was just really cool experience. I was like, as a young kid, I'm like, oh my God, he's in front of me. Like, because at the time I had met other, athletes and stuff like that. But it was kind of like the first guy. I was like, oh, whoa, like he's bigger in person, like,
Yeah.
um,
Very cool, man. Very cool.
really
I mean,
cool.
you're a
So
fan. What can you do?
yeah. Yeah, no, I was like this, like it was like tunnel vision, Nick. It was like, oh my God, he's in front of me. Like, this is the guy. And unfortunately, he had a few, like, I don't know, half a season with the Bruins. And but this was really cool to meet him. As a young kid, like, you meet these guys and like you see him and it's like, oh my God, it's like this the coolest thing. To see those guys at a card show. And I guess when I was a young kid, I was like, do I get the card signed? And do I not get the card signed? Like I have a great Ray Bork rookie card. It's signed. I always asked myself in the back of my head, because I mean, like I read Beckett, but there was no podcast. The internet wasn't a big thing. It wasn't around. So you're like, am I ruining the card? I had a Jeremy Roenick card that was autographed. So Jeremy Roenick's mom worked at a bank in Marshfield, and she had a stack of his cards, and she'd hand them out to you as a kid going into the bank. And my dad used to bank there. I can't remember the name of the bank, but my dad remembered, and I was like, oh my God, it's an autographed Jeremy Roenick card. And I was like, oh, did I ruin the card? Is the card ruined? Like it was given to me. So I always thought of that. And then I saw the pod, and I started looking at like your Instagram, and I was like, oh, Nick's got a ton of cards that are autographed. Maybe I didn't kill these cards. Maybe this is a good thing.
It's
So
changed over the years. So back in the day, you did ruin the card with an autograph. Now it makes it much more valuable, and it's that's why, there aren't a lot of Wilt Chamberlain rookie cards that are autographed in 1961. That's like a $250,000 card because it's so rare. I mean, it's like a pop of like five or something like that. So that was actually the case, and it's made some cards rarer over time, especially with the lesser name players. Because like Pete Maravich, Hall of Fame guy, he died very young, and he lived in the era where it was bad to sign the rookie card. So I've got a rookie card of his. There's like nine of them in the world. Um,
Wow.
and he's like a Hall of Fame guy, and he's NBA top 75. So people need him for sets, and it's pretty wild. So you didn't do anything wrong with Jeremy Roenick, that's for sure.
That
You
one
did
was
okay, and Ray Bork for that matter.
the Ronick was pre-signed, which was cool. I mean, his mom is like the
Oh, right.
nicest person in the world. But yeah, some of the other ones, after that, I was like really myself, and I was like, should I
So
do
wait,
this?
she was handing out stacks of Jeremy Roenick signed rookie cards, just
She
like
had
calling
it.
cards.
He was a teller at the bank, right? And like he was young in the league, and I mean, Ronick's big now that he's a broadcaster and stuff like
Right.
that. And he's got his own personality. Really fun guy to watch and listen to. If he's calling a game or he's part of like
Sure.
one of the outdoor games. But she had the stack, and I don't remember the exact card. I will find it. It wasn't a picture card; it was like a painted card. And I don't know who did that back in the day. They do these like almost like murals, and it was a little card, on a card instead of like a live photo or however they do it. And she would hand them out to kids. My dad would go in there and do his banking, and we'd always hope to get Mrs. Ronick, and she'd hand you a card as a kid. And I was like, this is like I want to go to the
Man.
bank.
Oh man, if only Wilt Chamberlain's mom was handing out,
Oh, yeah.
1961 cards. Well, then it wouldn't be as valuable, right? But
Yeah, I guess. And I don't
man,
know how many she handed out. I just remember the stack she had. And I thought it was so cool, looking back on that. Like she must have been so proud of her son.
oh
That like,
yeah.
and he's a Pembroke guy.
He was the man. Did you ever
Yeah,
play NHL on the Sega Genesis? Jeremy Roenick was like a cheat code.
yeah, he's like
Awesome.
so fast in the Blackhawks uniform, and it was just
Yeah.
like the card is awesome because it's like I said, a painted card,
Yeah.
and this so cool. I can't remember who did those, but they did like a series of them in the '90s, and there was all like murals of different players, and it was just so cool. But I'll never forget that bank, and I don't even know if the bank's there anymore, but I'll never forget Mrs. Ronick, and it was just like a cool thing to experience.
That's awesome, man. So
Yeah.
what's something that you want to sell like in the near term that you want some advice on?
So I had and I know like from the research I've done, I know like the '90s, it seemed like they were just like pumping cards out like crazy. I had a ton of hockey cards, and I had like duplicates of sets. I'd try to put together like these whole sets.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I always was like, I'm like an organizational person. I'm really into like logistics. And as a kid, I was like, I'd organize everything. Make it. Label maker was the coolest thing I ever got. I like, organize everything, and I like these sets, and I'm like, I had to have every number. So I had a lot of sets put together that I opened. It wasn't like I went in and bought I remember they sell the pre-box sets, and people would go in there and buy those, but I built the sets, and I'd
Hmm.
make sure I had tons of sets. I'd do like, 91, 92. I'd do like duplicates of all these sets. And I have like boxes and boxes and boxes of like, just like kind of crazy. Cause the next year you'd be waiting, and
Yeah.
I'd be like, I want to open it. And as a kid, you're like, you just want to open stuff. I'm like, I want to break these packs. I want to open them. So I'd have so many duplicates. And like a lot of the card places didn't want your dupes or whatever. Yeah, and they wanted like, the Gretzky's, the Yagers, those
Yeah.
guys, those top tier cards of top tier players. But I was like, I'm not letting Mjolnir Yager go. This guy's the man. Like he's awesome. Like
Yeah. Still is.
still is awesome. You see all these videos of Yager still training. He's like the first guy to the rink and the last one to leave. But so I never gave any of that stuff up. But I have so many. It's like, I'm just a caretaker,
What
like
do
we
you
were
do?
talking about. Like, I'm like, yeah, how many, Wayne, whatever year Wayne Gretzky's do you need? I have so many Bork, Neely's, because I'd be opening all these packs, just breaking these packs. And, you get dupes, obviously.
Yeah.
Uh,
I got
and
some
some of
bad
them,
news for you, man.
oh, yeah, I can imagine those are like a penny.
So all that stuff from the 90s is just I mean, there are exceptions with the
Yeah.
NBA. You have like these inserts that were super rare. It's not all junk. I hate to say that because I grew up with this, man. I have like the 88 tops baseball set, the 90 set. There's not much value there. You're almost better off going to like a local card shop, like giving them to kids and watching them like have fun with it. Like,
That's cool.
or here's another thing you could do. Take some of the cards out, like the Mark McGuire rookie card, the Wade Boggs rookie card, the um, just you know what? We'll make it easy. Any Hall of Famer who has a rookie card in any of those sets, put those aside and just get them autographed. They're
Yeah,
we take for granted these guys aren't going to be here forever. They're getting older. Um, get Yager to sign it, or if you don't have his rookie card, get him to sign like a few of your favorite cards, right? So start doing that with all the Hall of Fame, hockey, baseball, whatever you collected, and
yeah,
put that somewhere. That will have value. That I'm confident will have value long term if you're handing it down. If you want to just like get rid of this stuff, like you want it all out of your sight and you don't want to bother with the work, then I mean, geez, I'd call up a local card shop because they might find it interesting. They'd probably buy it cheap, like buy the set for $20 off you.
yeah,
It's cash in your pocket, right? It's pizza money.
yeah,
And, some kid will buy it there. It's nostalgic. It's cool. And if you add it all up, if you've got a ton, you might have a couple $1,000s worth of stuff. And that's a decent payday. So, again, eBay is your friend before
yeah.
you go and do that, make sure there isn't like a sneaky error card in there, like the like Billy Ripken, right, with the baseball bat that we all know what it says.
Oh, yeah. That's a
Yeah,
good one. I saw a lot of people comment on that one. I think
right.
my wife is going to be really happy too that you said that because like clear out basement space. You know, we have
Yeah,
kids
so
and
if you want to get rid of this stuff, like the coolest
yeah,
thing would be to go to just call your local card shop, and just be like, "Hey, I got all this stuff. You can have it real cheap, but you're taking it." And before you do that, make sure that there aren't expensive, like weird error cards or reprints or whatever, like that Billy Ripping card, a PSA 10. That's probably worth a few $100. You don't want to just give that away for 25 cents. And
yeah.
make sure that you don't want to get some of this stuff autographed. That's my other advice I would give you. Um, but you kind of choose your path there.
Yeah, that's great advice because you hang on to this stuff, and I know like I feel like I've seen like a lot of people. The Hall of Fame thing's great because you see like you on YouTube or Facebook you see guys break packages or wax packs. The first thing they do is separate the Hall of Famers, and
Yeah.
it's amazing. You see some of these guys that are Hall of Famers. I'm like, I didn't know he was a Hall of Famer. Like, feel like I could spend a lot of time doing that. So
Yeah, Hall of Fame safe, right? So
yeah,
I hate to say it, but people don't want to accept it right now. But we are in another 1990s era of just overprinting like zebra striped junk, in my opinion. Now, to be fair, like if you like Jason Tatum and you want to collect his cards, you're obviously your only option is these modern cards. That's cool. But like the flipping or like the thinking that these like purple striped polka dotted things are gonna have like value to somebody 30 years from now, they aren't. So we're in another overprinting era, just like that.
yeah,
Even the one of ones, there's probably 2,000 one of ones every year. How many Bill Russell autograph rookie cards are there? It's probably like 50.
yeah,
So you have to think about things in terms of scarcity as a collector. So we're in another era like that. So just beware as you get back into the hobby. Focus on good vintage stuff or guys you like to watch play or get
mm,
something autographed. That makes all the difference like nowadays. And then for the stuff you've got, just like I said, do your research, decide if you want to sell it, and it's two different paths. If you want to keep it, that's one path. If you want to sell it, that's another path. You do that for all your things, even some of the weirder stuff. Like I know you mentioned you had the whole Bruins team autograph something that might be like a one of one thing. So
yeah. So that's a lot of older stuff too. And like, luckily, my grandfather interjected with me and was like, "Hey," and I think he foresaw like the '90s were like just pumping out boxes.
yeah.
So I have the entire Bruins team when they won the cup. I think it was '72. I believe it was the year, right? When
Ooh,
they
that might
entire
be
team
that might be
autograph.
pretty good. So that might be worthy. Again, are you going to keep it? Are you going to sell it? If you're going to sell it, hit up offline. I can tell you several of these guys that work at these auction houses. You just connect with them and have a chat and just say,
Yeah,
"Hey, I got this. What should I do with it?" The first thing they're going to say is get it authenticated. So you could go to JSA, get a little sticker on it, and like a certificate that has all their names. It's one way. Another way, if the photo's not like totally massive, you can get it slabbed at PSA as like photo, Bruins photo or something like that. And then, you could look up who's autographed it. That's another option. But then, they could sell it in an auction, or you could sell it you could grade it and sell it yourself on eBay, right? it's up to you. And if you want to keep it, I think stuff like that, especially that brew. I mean, obviously that's near and dear to my heart. Um, I would recommend just get it authenticated because we're all busy. Don't let another 10 years go by. Who knows what's going
Yeah,
to
that's the
happen?
thing. It's like
You know,
sitting in this box, and I opened it up, and I'm like,
yeah,
some of
just
these guys
send it in.
probably aren't around anymore.
It's not going
Uh,
to cost you a ton of money, especially
yeah,
JSA. It's very inexpensive. You can look up on JSA's website, the autographs of the guys who are on that team.
yeah, that's
Um,
what I was going to ask you about because some of them are unrecognizable. I mean, there's the
yeah,
photo
they'll
is a team photo, and like everybody signed it on the back. There's got to be 30 autographs on the back. The coach has signed it, and I'm like, I know he's long,
they may
long.
not be able to do them all, but they'll do the
Yeah,
ones they can.
yeah, like
You're not going to
Bobby Orr's
find
pretty obvious. You
you
can
won't
tell.
find prices for them all either. But they're just a phone call away or an email away too. These they aren't like scary people. Like I've called JSA. It's a couple lovely ladies that run the customer service. They're really nice, and I just had a couple questions for them. So that's what I would do with that one. Very interesting. All right, so we're running up on time, and we always ask our guests like this question. And I got to ask you, especially with like all the stuff you've been diving into. If you could sit down and get a coffee for a couple of hours with any sports figure, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Oh, this is easy for me. I mean, like just because he's like, I love him. Wayne Gretzky.
Oh yeah,
Um, so as a kid, everybody had a Bruins starter jacket. Like I said, I'm 40. I had a Los Angeles Kings starter jacket. I don't know who got it for me, my aunt or somebody. I don't know where they found it because it wasn't sold around Boston. If it was Charlotte Hornets, there was 400 of them. But it had LA Kings starter jacket in elementary school, and I think kids ragged on me. But Wayne Gretzky had just been traded to them. I really liked Luke Robitaille. And I just, Wayne Gretzky is this like things his father said, things he said. I read books about him. Like you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And I think Wayne said that his father, coined that, but he kind of took credit for it. But I just love Wayne Gretzky. I think he's just like a great person. I always loved watching him. I think like he was like the Michael Jordan of hockey. He was great for the game. He brought the game, worldwide. He just made hockey. I know Gordie Howe's Mr. Hockey, but Wayne Gretzky is just kind of like who I always really loved watching. It's kind of tough being from Boston and being a Kings fan. Although I love the Bruins, don't get me wrong. Cam Neely, Ray Bourque, all those guys are awesome. But I just followed Wayne Gretzky around, and yes, I wore that starter jacket, and everybody had their Bruins or whatever it was, and I was like, nope, Los Angeles Kings. Still remember getting it for Christmas, and I was like, yes. I don't
excellent.
know who traveled to wherever to get it, but Wayne Gretzky's the guy. Just complete admiration for not only him as a hockey player, but if you listen to some of the stuff he talks about as a person, he's got great intellect. He's just like a great ambassador for the game of hockey, for kids, for everybody, man.
Excellent. I
Like,
think that's a great choice. The first Wayne Gretzky we've got on the pod. But you're right, he's like Yogi Berra. He's got these great quotes,
and
like
then
missing the
Yogi
shots you don't
Berra is
take, you
yeah,
know.
like Yogiisms. Yogi's the second would probably be my second choice. I just think like Yogi Berra. I mean, if anybody has time to watch the show on him, was just a great person for the game of baseball. And I'd like to say Mantle, but if you do any research on Mantle, you
Yeah.
realize, yeah, but yeah, Yogi Berra is a great. If it was one for each sport, my baseball one would be Yogi Berra. But
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, Colby, this has been awesome. Just for the audience, do you? I know personally that you do a lot of other cool stuff. You're kind of a music buff. You manage some
Yeah.
bands. You manage a festival. It's pretty cool. So if anybody wants to like follow you or reach out, maybe they have some cool brewing stuff. Like, how can they find you?
I have an Instagram and it's awful, man. I really don't update it much, but I think it's C Vining 13 is my handle on Instagram, and I got to get better with it. I just like, I'm not a big Instagram, Facebook guy, but I'm on there. I'm always watching things. It's
Yeah.
great to watch other people's content. I'm not an artist. I always tell people that, I work with a lot of different artists. Work in music festival. Shout out to those guys at Levitate Music Festival, which you should all go to this summer. It's going to be awesome, and it's 11th year. But I'm just not an artist, man. I'm a logistical type of organized guy. I enjoy that mechanical things. I'm not great at posting. I'm not a good photo guy, which is one of the reasons I enjoyed looking at cards. It's like I just like I have a admiration for photographers and what they do and artists. I can't draw a stick. I'm an awful artist. So when I
Fair enough.
see, whether it's an athlete or an artist that makes a card, I really have an admiration for that. And yeah, so check out the Instagram. It's not great, nothing like you guys's, but I'll keep working on it. I'm gonna try to post some cool stuff up and try to get some content on there because I do enjoy like listening to your pod, looking at your Instagram, looking at other people's
Sure.
Instagrams. But yeah, so
Cool.
work.
Excellent.
That's the
I'm going to
goal.
try to make it to the Levitate Music Festival this summer. It's pretty
Yeah.
awesome. So for the audience that's not in our area, it's basically on the South Shore, south of Boston, about 30,000 people, a lot of great just summer bands, good times. So I appreciate it. Colby, thank
Yeah, it's
you.
great to
Thanks
talk.
again for having you.
Yeah, appreciate it.